Welcome to One-on-One, the Daily Items weekly digital program featuring Susquehanna Valley newsmakers interviewed by Daily Item reporters. Today's guest is Northumberland County Area Agency on Aging Administrator Karen Leonovitch, interviewed by reporter Justin Strawser.
Sunbury Motors is bringing in the new year with a lofty goal. Sell 1,000 new Fords in 2019. You heard right, 1,000 new Fords. SMC knows they can achieve this lofty goal, and here's why. Sunbury Motors Ford has 2019 Ford Fiestas starting at $12,820. That's a new car for under $13,000. Browse Central Pennsylvania's largest selection of four-wheel drive vehicles. Pick from 68 Ford Escapes, and they're slashed to as low as $17,820. SMC has all remaining 2018 Ford Explorers reduced by $8,000, starting at $33,985.
Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Justin Strawser, and today our guest is Karen Leonovitch. She's the administrator of the Northumberland County Area Agency on Aging. Thanks for joining us today, Karen.
Thanks for having me, Justin.
Now, I wanted to bring you in here because we worked pretty closely last year in 2018. What turned out to be, in my opinion, pretty good series on senior issues.
Yes.
So to bring you in here, kind of put a cap on that, kind of go over some of the stuff that we talked about as sort of a 20-minute fast edition of what we did.
Sure.
So this all sort of started out about a year ago.
Yes.
When you recommended we close Northumberland County close the Trevorton Senior Action Center.
Yes.
And then later that year, you would later recommend that the Elysburg Senior Action Center be closed down too.
Correct.
How did you come to making those two decisions?
A lot of it was based on funding and attendance. We had not had an increase in funding for approximately 15 years from the Department of Aging. Our expenses increased, but we hadn't received any additional funding, and our attendance had been slowly dropping at both centers. So we looked at funding based on need for service, and we made a decision from there to make a change.
Okay. Now, immediately, when those decisions were announced, I remember the Zerby Township Board was asking you guys to reconsider.
Correct.
There's some current and former elected officials that kind of came out and was like, we need to think about this again.
Correct.
And I've had some interviews with some candidates who are running for election who've said about, we got to come back and revisit the issue. Why do you think it's such a hot topic? Why do you think that kind of hit people's nerves?
Older adults are a hot topic. We have a lot of seniors in Northumberland County. About 33% of the population in the county are older adults. So it affects a lot of people 60 and older within the county. Nobody likes to take a service away. We like to be able to add services. So I think it makes it a hot topic for a lot of discussion, lively and not lively discussion.
One of the, and we'll get to some of those reasons that we're going to discuss, but there was something about, was it the Senior Action Center in Trevorton? It was kind of broken down, is that?
Yes, it was an old building, a very old building. The landlord had attempted to do a lot of fixing and repairs for us, but the repairs had gotten to the point where they were very expensive for him to complete. We were having a lot of flooding issues. Every time we had rain or heavy snow, the water would come into the kitchen and into the area where the older adults were attending. Yeah. And it wasn't safe for them to be there. I think had it not been too expensive of a repair, he probably would have done it for us. But with the low attendance, it was kind of a situation where we made the decision to close at that time.
So the seniors at both of those places were asked to join up with the Shamokin Cole Township Senior Action Center. How have those three groups merged? Are they getting along?
Very well. Actually, Trevorton has moved in with the Shamokin Center. Attendance has increased there on a daily basis. They have a lot of fundraisers, a lot of potlucks, a lot of activities. That has been a very successful merge. We moved the center manager from Trevorton to Shamokin Center, so she was able to bring a lot of her ideas and programs. That has been a very successful merger. Elysburg has managed to stay on their own. They have created a group called the Friendship Center. They're based at the same location. The church has been very kind and has given them the space to use at a small donation fee. They continue to meet twice a week from 10:30 to 12:30 for activities. We stay in touch with them. They're doing very well and very happy with the situation that they have. They don't have to adhere to any rules and regulations mandated by the state for running a senior center. So they're getting to do the things they like to do without having to do all of our regulations.
And to be clear, the county does not associated with them anymore. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
They're independent.
They're independent. Have you gone to visit them or anything?
Yes.
Okay.
I stopped in once, and our director of our senior centers has stopped in. And we see them in the community. I live in the same town. I live in Elysburg, so I see them in the community, and they seem to be very happy.
And they're doing that all on their own, self-sufficient?
All on their own. Yep, very independent.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm very happy for them.
So the group that went from Shamokin, or went from Trevorton, that's the one I'm thinking.
Yeah.
The county provides services as transportation for them?
Yes, Rabbit Transit provides our transportation. So Rabbit now takes the people from Trevorton and we'll pick them up at home and take them to Shamokin Center as many days as they like. And the aging office pays the copay for them to go through Rabbit.
And so it's probably a pretty sad thing for them to close. Were the seniors pretty understanding?
Very understanding. Sad. They didn't want to lose the center that they had attended all those years, but they understood that the building had needed some repairs and there was some safety concerns, and they knew their numbers were dropping. Unfortunately, Trevorton's an older town with some older people living there. People become frail, unable to attend. They pass away. Their numbers had dropped without a lot of new members coming in. So they were very understanding. Once that initial hearing about it the first time was a little rough, but within a day I was hearing, thank you for at least considering us, and we understand that we needed to merge.
One of the things that we talked about last year were a lot of the older residents aren't going to the senior centers anymore.
Right.
Can you explain why that is?
Sure. We have a couple of things that happen. Seniors nowadays tend to work more. They work longer. A lot of the older adults that we deal with, they are still involved with caring for their grandchildren. So years ago, usually one of the parents, usually the mother, was able to stay home and raise the children. Now, usually both parents are working, so the grandparents are babysitting during the day and taking care of the kids. So we have a lot of seniors that are unable to attend because they are staying home with their grandchildren. We've done surveys about that. We've asked the community about that to see what we can do to try to bring more people in. And that seemed to be our number one. They were either still working or they were taking care of their grandchildren.
And you see a lot of older residents, they're going back to work not just out of necessity. I mean, that's probably a lot of it, but for probably they feel like they have something that they still need, that they don't need to retire.
Yes. Yeah, they want to keep working. It's rewarding. Yes.
Now, that story ended up leading to a bigger story about grandparents taking care of their grandchildren. I told the story of Roger and Teresa Hilbert.
Yes.
And one of the kind of sad things that kind of came out of that is that while babysitting is definitely one of the major reasons, because their parents are going back to work, but the opioid and addiction epidemic has kind of spawned that as well. It's kind of raised that.
Yes.
What do you see in with those kind of situations?
We have a lot of grandparents that contact us for either care management assistance or financial assistance because they weren't expecting to raise their grandchildren, and either the son or daughter of the grandparent has become addicted, has gone to jail, has unfortunately passed away, unable to care for the children. So the grandparents didn't expect to raise the children and now are responsible for them, sometimes gaining custody, sometimes needing to provide the financial support, and they don't know what to do. Aging in the past was not heavily involved in that area. It was a younger person disease for the most part, so we weren't heavily involved. We had older adults that had issues with prescription abuse, but we hadn't dealt much with the ramification of a grandparent having to be responsible. So that's been a learning curve for our staff at our agency about learning what we need to do to support the grandparents through that crisis and those situations.
And that sprung up pretty quick. I know we talked about it here, and then all of a sudden we started seeing, like, the Northumberland County Support Group.
Yes.
That you started through the
mm-hmm.
agency, the Grandparent Support Group. That kind of sprung up when we were talking about it.
Right.
And then there was a church, I think, out towards Watsontown area
Yes.
that started their support group.
Yes.
So it became an issue, and then all of a sudden there's laws being introduced
Yes.
last year and things like that. So it was interesting to watch it. We realized it started to happen and then see it spreading
It did
from
unfold.
there. But we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Karen Leonovitch.
Sunbury Motors is bringing in the new year with a lofty goal. Sell 1,000 new Fords in 2019. You heard right, 1,000 new Fords. SMC knows they can achieve this lofty goal, and here's why. Sunbury Motors Ford has 2019 Ford Fiestas starting at $12,820. That's a new car for under $13,000. Browse Central Pennsylvania's largest selection of four-wheel drive vehicles. Pick from 68 Ford Escapes, and they're slashed to as low as $17,820. SMC has all remaining 2018 Ford Explorers reduced by $8,000, starting at $33,985.
Welcome back to One on One. We're here talking with Karen Leonovitch. Before we get back into it, Karen, can you tell us a little bit about your background? How did you come into the position, and where do you come from?
I actually did my internship with Columbia Montour Aging Office way long ago.
How long?
91.
I was 6 years old.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't. From there, I actually worked for Columbia Montour Aging Office for about 10 years. And I came down to Northumberland County back in 2012. The deputy director at the time, Pat Rosini, had passed away suddenly. And they asked me to come down and take over that position. In 2015, our administrator at the time, Pat Rumberger, retired. And I fortunately was able to take that position.
Okay. Are you enjoying it now?
I love it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So another story we worked on together last year was some of the senior abuse numbers kind of were increasing. Now that includes, when you think of senior abuse, you think of, the people, their caretakers maybe taking advantage of them.
Right.
But it's not always just that. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. We have different types of and varieties of abuse we do look for. We have a self-neglect, which is usually our biggest referral area, where older adults are living alone and either depressed and unable to get care for themselves, they have dementia and are unable to care for themselves, or they've just always lived that way and they don't want to make a change. Caregiver neglect is our next biggest. We have a lot of caregivers who may be well-intentioned but not educated on what they need to do. Once they receive the education, there's no issues. Sometimes we just have some bad caregivers that don't do the right things. Financial exploitation has been huge for us in this area. Financial exploitation from the families or loved ones or caregivers. But we also have the scams that happen through... You get that weird phone call from Jamaica and they want you to get some money out for them and pay them money, and then they'll send you $2 million. We have a lot of financial exploitation that we investigate. We also investigate any sexual abuse or sexual exploitation of older adults, and it does happen in the county. May not hear much about it, but it does definitely happen in our county.
I was surprised to see that when it comes to financial exploitation, that there's not a lot of laws. The laws are kind of murky when it comes to,
Yes.
power of attorney and whatnot.
Yes.
That they're legally allowed to spend this money and end up taking advantage of it.
Yes.
And there's not a whole lot of repercussions for them.
Correct. I know legislation has been introduced in Pennsylvania, but also across the United States, to try to firm up some of the guardianship and power of attorney laws, because there's always loopholes that people go through, and some people find those loopholes.
Now, am I right in remembering that the numbers are up, but we're not quite sure why. That it could be that there's more seniors. It could be that there's more awareness out there of what
Right.
abuse is.
Right. Our office does a lot of education in the community to all kinds of, service organizations, nursing homes, wherever we can introduce information. There's also information on TV. There's a lot of information about the financial exploitation going on right now. We have more seniors. The baby boomers hit, and we are in the middle of that right now. So our numbers have increased substantially, the number of cases that we need to investigate every year.
We mentioned also that the in-home care services are increasing.
Yes.
What is that situation like? There's a waiting list, correct?
Yes. We had to implement a waiting list in September of this past year. As more people are turning 60 and in need of services, our numbers of people we're serving has increased. Our caseload has about doubled in about a year. We are providing home-delivered meals, personal care, and some other services. The number of people we're serving and the amount of units they need to receive has increased roughly around 33% for all of our services. Again, with no increase in funding from the state, that has really affected how we play with our budget and where we put our money. We have spent our budget in those areas of personal care and bathing. So we had to implement the waiting list in September. Hopefully we will be able to put services back in the near future, but right now we're on hold with implementing services for folks because we are out of money at this point.
New folks or new?
New,
Okay,
yeah, the
okay.
new.
So the
yeah.
ones that are being taken care of now are
They're okay.
Okay.
Yeah, they're okay.
Okay. Now, when you think of at-home meals, you mentioned that a lot of times you think of Meals on Wheels, which is part of the program.
Right.
But I was surprised to learn that the Meals on Wheels is sort of going down while the cold pack meals that
Yes.
was described are going
Yes.
up.
Yes.
What's the differences between those two?
The Meals on Wheels are delivered once a day, Monday through Friday. They're a hot meal. Shamokin area is the only area right now that does that our agency funds. There are
Northumberland
other
County.
programs. Yeah, Sunbury Hospital, Evangelical Hospital, they also do the program, but we do not fund them. We just fund Shamokin area right now. The cold pack meals, we have 7 delivered once a week from the provider, and they're cold pack. They're a flash frozen meal that the person can heat up, very similar to a TV dinner. They're microwavable. They come with the full, same with the Meals on Wheels, they come with the full amount of food that you would need for the day.
So the last issue that we did in December, we talked about driving for older drivers. I definitely learned a lot about that. We learned about the mature driving seminars. Where the PennDOT goes around to different senior action centers,
Correct.
and they talk to the seniors about safety and whatnot. I learned about the doctors. They're legally obligated at any age to tell PennDOT this person might not be safe to drive.
Right.
And the other thing I was surprised to learn was, I think it's at age 40, PennDOT starts randomly testing, sending out, making sure that you know what you're doing.
Right.
What do you see for older drivers in the county?
We get a lot of phone calls at the office from children saying, I'm afraid to have mom and dad drive. Mom's forgetting where to turn. Dad's forgetting how to find the neighborhood barber. They are concerned about driving and what they need to do to help mom and dad. So we refer them usually first thing back to the attending physician to have that conversation. We also encourage them to, if they are really concerned and there's a safety issue, to disable the car if they feel comfortable or take the keys. We are also willing as care management to go out and sit with the family and the older adult to have that difficult conversation. Sometimes that third party neutral is a lot easier to take. So we will go out and assist families through that process if needed.
Do you find a lot of resistance? What's the attitude of the older
Yes.
drivers?
Most of the older drivers don't want to lose their independence. So they don't want to give up their driver's license and driving. I can understand that. That's sometimes their last independence that they're doing. So that is a concern for them. But again, safety becomes an issue. So we have those conversations of you don't want to hurt anybody or yourself. So we need to talk about it.
Now, you mentioned independence. Is that kind of the thing that you hear a lot is,
Yes.
This is my, I think one of the things that they mentioned, some of the people mentioned when I were interviewed was, I can't take care of myself, at home, I live XYZ,
Right.
So this is kind of the last sort of thing that represents independence.
Yes,
Is that
and they're hanging on to it.
okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Even when we offer them rapid transit, to them, someone's still driving them.
So coincidentally, I think it was last week, I did a story on a Line Mountain high schooler who's now working with Linda Schlegel-Culver
Yes.
on some driving laws.
Right.
And that's kind of where his idea comes from. He says, there's a lot of drivers out there who aren't safe. And he didn't specifically target,
Right.
older drivers, but,
Right.
His idea was, test them throughout the years and maybe there will be less accidents on the road or
Right.
whatnot.
Right.
So that was kind of an interesting thing that didn't spawn from it, but kind of in the line with
Yeah.
happened to write a story about it. But
Yeah.
what do you see then on the horizon for senior issues this year in 2019? Is there anything that is you foresee kind of coming into the news or?
Healthcare is always a number one issue. Always a number one issue. Most people, once they hit 65, are covered by Medicare. The cost associated, however, with getting the supplemental insurances and their medications has always been and will always be an issue. They're on a fixed income. They may not have a lot of income. Trying to afford their medications and get the health care they need is sometimes very difficult. Our office does have a program called the Apprise program that will counsel and work with people in trying to find the appropriate Medicare supplement and the appropriate medication plans to assist with getting the health care that you need. But I know that's been a hot topic for years within the aging population in the United States.
Okay. And all right, well, that's all the time we have for today. Karen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And this has been the edition of One on One.
Thanks for watching One on One. Be sure to tune in next week for another edition.